Hi, welcome to Bedtime Stories with OPL. I'm Miss Beth. Grab your favorite stuffy, get comfy, and let's get ready for a story.
Max, are your toys put up yet? Max, it's almost time for bed. Don't you want to finish Jack and the Beanstalk? Bark. Those toys all better be put up before I come in. Bark, bark. You're ready, huh? Bark. Wow, you did such a good job putting your toys away, didn't you? Bark, bark. Yeah, good job. You ready for the story? Bark, bark. All right. Do you remember where we ended? Up and up he went till the clouds lay far below, and he reached the top of the beanstalk and stepped onto the straight white road. Then he ran along until he came to the giant's castle. Bark. Now, as soon as the giant's wife saw him, she shouted to him to go away at once. "My husband will eat you up, for he is still in a dreadful temper," she said. "That very day you were here, a bag of gold was lost, and it cannot be found anywhere." Do we know where the gold went? Bark. Yeah. "Oh, please let me in and give me some breakfast," begged Jack. Again, the giant's wife allowed him to come in and gave him some bread and honey. But just as he was eating the last crust, thump, thump, came the sound of the giant's feet tramping along the road. The giant's wife had only time to hide Jack in the cupboard before the giant stalked in. He sniffed, and he listened, and he sniffed again. Then in an awful voice he roared, "Fee, fi, fo, fum, I smell the blood of an Englishman. Be he living or be he dead, I'll grind his bones to make my bread." Bark! Oh, come, said his wife. "Don't be so silly. You only smell the 3 oxen I've roasted you for breakfast." So the giant sat down and began to eat. But every few minutes he paused with a mouthful of roast ox and sniffed suspiciously around. His wife only laughed at him, so he finished his breakfast in sulky silence. "Wife, wife," he shouted when he was done, "bring me my golden hen." His wife brought a beautiful little speckled hen and placed it on the table. "Lay!" roared the giant. And the hen laid an egg of pure gold. Yeah. And each time the giant said lay, she laid another. Then the giant began to grow sleepy, and he yawned so loudly that the people in the world below said, "There's an earthquake going on somewhere." When he was asleep, out stole Jack, and creeping nimbly round the table, he seized the golden hen, tucked her under his arm, and ran out the door. "Squawk, squawk!" screamed the hen, and up jumped the giant in a great hurry. But he was only in time to see Jack disappear at the end of the straight white road. You may be sure that Jack did not waste much time climbing down the beanstalk. Down, down, down he swung until he reached the bottom, when he burst into the kitchen, hot and panting, and placed the hen on the table. "Mother," he cried, "see what I have brought you from the magic beanstalk." Then he said softly, "Lay, little hen," and the hen at once laid a shining golden egg. Jack's mother was so surprised and delighted that she could scarcely believe her eyes. "I shall never call you idle again," she said, looking at Jack with great pride. Now there was no longer any need to climb the magic beanstalk. But each day Jack longed for fresh adventures. The moment he woke in the morning, when the scent of the blossoms was wafted into his room, he could think of nothing else but the magic beanstalk and the giant's castle at the end of the straight white road. So at last, early one morning, he slipped away and began to climb up once more. The higher he climbed, the happier he felt, and when the white clouds swept past him, he shouted for joy. But when he reached the top and ran along the road to the giant's castle, he did not dare show himself, but waited near the kitchen door until he saw the giant's wife go out to fetch water. Then he crept into the kitchen and hid himself in the boiler. Very soon the floor began to shake under the tramp, tramp of the giant's tread, and in he came with his wife. This time they both sniffed the air and said together, "Fee, fi, fo, fum, I smell the blood of an Englishman. Be he living or be he dead, I'll grind his bones to make my bread." Bark! That's scary, isn't it? Bark, bark. And then they ran to the oven and the cupboard to see if Jack was hiding there. But luckily he was safe in the boiler. And though they looked under the dish covers and behind the clock, and everywhere they could think of, they could not find him. "It cannot be a fresh little boy after all," said the giant's wife. "It must be the bones of those little boys you had on toast last night for dessert." Yuck. Ugh. Ugh. Nasty. So the giant sat down and began his breakfast, and when he was done he stretched himself out before the fire for his morning doze. "Wife," he cried, "fetch me my magic harp, for I think it would soothe me to sleep." Then the giant's wife brought out a little golden harp and placed it on the table. It was the most wonderful harp that was ever made, for it was really a little fairy stretched upon a golden frame, so that her shining hair made the harp strings. And when the wind played through the living chords, the fairy notes came quivering out, and the harp sang along to the music. "Play!" roared the giant, and immediately the fairy music began, and the harp sang until the air quivered with the golden notes. Then, as the giant fell asleep and began to snore, the music died away, and Jack crept out of the boiler. He seized the harp with both hands and ran softly towards the door. But he had forgotten that the harp was really a fairy, and when he seized her, she cried out in her loudest voice, "Bark!" Oh, no. Up sprang the giant, and in a twinkling of an eye gave a frightful roar when he saw Jack dart out of the door and run off along the straight white road. Jack had never run so fast in all his life as he did then, but the giant ran faster still. He thundered along, getting closer at every step, and had just stretched out his hand to seize the thief when Jack reached the top of the beanstalk and began climbing swiftly down. The giant stopped for a moment, for he was not sure if this strange tree could bear his weight. The harp cried out, and that made the giant so furious that he began to climb down after Jack as quick as he could. It swayed, it creaked, and crash it fell with a tremendous thud, and the giant lay buried beneath the ruins. Then Jack danced for joy, and the fairy harp played soft music. And now that the beanstalk was gone, he lived contentedly at home with his mother, and the golden hen, and the fairy harp, which brought them more riches than they knew how to spend. The end. Did you like that one?
Bark, bark.
Yeah. It's kind of fun to be scared every now and then when it ends up being okay in a story, doesn't it? Bark, bark. All right, are you ready to go to bed? Bark, bark. All right, let me get you all snuggled up. All righty. What? Good night, Max. Bark, bark. Bless you. Bark, bark.
I hope you enjoyed our story tonight. We have these great stories and lots more like them at the library. Come find out where your imagination can take you. I'll see you next time. Sweet dreams!